Hi there. I'm Maria Deasy, president of Irish American Writers and Artists, and I am delighted to have been invited here by Marcin and the Irish Echo. And I am equally delighted to have this amazing panel of arts representatives and arts practitioners. First, to my right, I have Bob Kearney from the Maine Irish Heritage Center. He's one of the founding members of the MIHC, and he is on the board of, he's actually board chair, and he's on the board of the committee that's responsible for the restoration of their building, which is apparently a true architectural gem. He is also on the board of the Irish American Club of Maine, and he is very passionate about live music and about all things Irish, and especially the St. Patrick's Day parade that you guys have up there, which is, I believe, very, very popular. Next, we have my old friend, Mr. Larry Kirwan, who is, probably a lot of you know, he is a founding member of Black 47 with 2,500 gigs under his belt, 16 albums. He's also a novelist and a playwright. He has a novel out now called Rockaway Blues, so check it out. And he has a show coming to Broadway in March 2022, which is now preparing for a run in Chicago at the Nederlander Theater, which is extremely exciting. And he is the former president for 5 years of Irish American Writers and Artists, and a wonderful friend. Next, we have Catherine Barry. Catherine is here from San Francisco, and she is the editor of the SF Arts Monthly. She's also a director of Irish Culture Bay Area and the Irish Arts and Writers Festival. She's vice president of the Irish Literary and Historical Society, and she works with several Irish organizations. She's very busy, clearly, and all these people are very busy and very accomplished and active in supporting Irish art. So I'm going to kind of open the floor right now and ask them what's the state of the art in each of their communities. Bob, do you want to speak to that?
Sure. Pardon me.
I think we can all just, let's have a conversation. Let's just open it up and have some fun and really discuss what's going on in each of our organizations.
Well, the way I look at it is like, since the arts are just an integral part of Irish and Irish American culture, that organizations like this and like the Maine Irish Heritage Center are in a good position to open up and also to be part of the healing and in the community. And let me just quickly touch on a few of the things like the Maine Irish Heritage Center has done over the last 18 months with our community. And in the process, we wound up expanding our community because we have a greater reach than we did before. Communities need the arts. Society as a whole need the arts because of the dance, music, actors, activities, and stuff like that. Is a healing process in itself and bring us more back to normal. So one of the things that first got us onto this was we had a live gallery show that was being in our upper level of the sanctuary of our building, and that wound up having to be closed because we never actually even opened it, but with the help of members Jean Haney, Mary and Rob Canfield, they transformed that with music into an online art show. And in that process, that gave birth to every 3 months we would have a new exhibit online. And mostly they're artists from Ireland and from the Irish American community in the US. And what is good about that, presently, there are 2 artists from Ireland, from Armagh and Dublin, and also from New Hampshire and Maine, that are presently online, and we made it possible to, through our website, for viewers to purchase their artwork, so that to help them out. Jean Haney also created this something similar called Book Talk, which is like a series of online discussions of authors that have especially new books out. The latest one we did with 2 authors in Ireland. Their book, Old Ireland in Color, and they explained that the whole process. And with that, and they talked with 2 authors in Portland, one of them which is having his book launch online called Murky Overhead, that Michael Connolly's book, and then Bridget Connolly is also doing her book called Forgetting Ireland, and that's going to be discussion in Maine, Ireland, and Minnesota. So it's time.
It's bringing everyone
Yeah, it's
together.
all bringing that together.
Maybe you could have Larry's book.
Yeah, definitely. And another impact, the casualty of it was our local Irish theater, AIRE, American Irish Repertory Ensemble, couldn't perform Tony Riley's creation, Ulysses for Beginners. And so, with the help of Gene Haney again, they were able to take that video and put it online. And actually, this helped many of us understand Joyce, if that's possible. And
Right.
So, but what was great about that was that it also got to a wider audience.
Let's move on for a second because we're talking about theater. And Larry, if you could speak a little bit about what the process has been of bringing a show to Broadway during a pandemic. And I know there have been years of workshopping, and you were at the Berkeley Rep for a while, but now you're in the thick of it, and it's, you know, sort of up and down and touch and go in terms of theater. You know, the rules are changing and all that. What has that been like for you personally, and what do you see for the future of the show or Broadway in general?
It's been bruising, apart from that. But on my way here today, I was thinking of my own history in the arts, and one of the things that struck me is that in bad times, particularly economic bad times and times of upheaval, that's the time that the arts really start to happen. Like, I remember coming here in the 70s, and you know, New York City was reckoned to be a disaster at that time,
Right.
but to us in the arts, it was a paradise. You had CBGBs with a punk explosion. You could go down there and see the greatest bands. The streets throbbed with reggae and ska, and even the rich people who were uptown in Studio 54, you know, they had their disco music on the floor, and all those musics have combined to make what music is today. I was in a band called Turner and Corwin of Wexford back then, and with Pierce Turner, and I swear to God, we never once thought about money. Money was, do you pay your rent? But it was all about originality. How can we be original? How can we write songs that we wouldn't have written back in Wexford? How could we do that in New York? As regards Paradise Square, well, it's just one of those things, you know, I've written, I think, something like 19 plays and musicals at this time, and it happened to get a good review in the New York Times when it was known as Hard Times, and then that hooked me up with a famous producer called Garth Drabinsky. I went up to Toronto to work with him, and then we gradually brought in a lot of really great collaborators, because that's the secret to the Broadway situation, is you're going to be collaborating with a lot of people, and you have to give up control of certain things. But hopefully the collaborations all work. They worked out in Berkeley Rep, where I met Catherine. And but one other thing I just wanted to say was the pandemic for me, although it was a national catastrophe and still is, it was just a great opportunity to not play, not travel, but to go to this little house I have up in Milford, Connecticut, on the beach and get back into nature. And through doing that, I found that I was just exploding again with ideas. But I knew that the theatrical community was really hurting. So with one of them was a commission I got to do to turn The Informer, the book by Liam O'Flaherty, and the movie by John Ford, to turn that into a stage play. And instead of going into my room and, you know, visualizing the whole thing, I decided, let me work with all the young Irish actors in New York, all the the ones who are looking for a break and who are not working during this time. Because for actors, it's so much harder than it is for musicians to actually get a gig and get out there. And it was a real creative upheaval for me to every Monday night, we would have a Zoom session where they would read 10 or 15 minutes of what I had written, and then I would go back and fix that up and on to the next 10 minutes. And for the actors, it was great because for the first time, for a lot of them, they were actually creating a character on stage. So I think that's one of the things we have to do is in this time of upheaval is to try and get as many people working again. And for those of you who listen to music, I'll give you one straight thing that you can do to help musicians. Forget about Spotify and things like that. Actually go and buy the music you're listening to.
Absolutely.
Everyone loves music. Everyone loves their Spotify. I can reach so many artists and everything, but what about the artist that
What
is
do they get
depending
paid?
on this?
Yeah. No, I applaud. Yeah, I echo a lot of what you said, actually. And as an actor, I will say that I participated in like online sessions with writers, trying out new pages that had previously been, we would meet downtown in a studio. And then I also ended up writing part of a musical with some alumni friends. So it was definitely a very creative time. It wasn't ideal. It's very hard to look at a script and relate to someone on screen. If it's supposed to be a play, it's a whole different thing. But what I found so inspiring was this sort of can-do element of the whole creative community, and I'm of the business community as well, of course, but just, all right, what do we do now? Let's make it work. Let's relate to each other. Let's create. And when we get out of this, we'll do something else. But I also, agree that times of hardship create little pockets beyond the Zoom thing, but when we come back and we are safer to be live performing together, I do feel sometimes economic downturns do really foster creativity, community, collaboration, interesting things that wouldn't have otherwise occurred. I think a big point, especially in New York, is that Broadway shows, theater are completely dependent upon finance. Those two businesses are linked businesses. A Broadway musical costs $15 million to mount. So when that money kind of recedes and goes other places, as much as some things don't have an opportunity, other things that are not so economically dependent, that can be done in a storefront. I remember when I moved to New York, my sister used to do Jean Genet and Shakespeare in an empty storefront down on the Lower East Side where nobody lived at the time. Now you can't afford an apartment down there. So, there is creativity that happens when things are a little bit less prosperous, I hate to say. So there are two sides of that story. There's the Broadway that is completely dependent and that also produces amazing work. But then there are the little things that maybe are going to start to generate now. And if I may say, Paradise Square started, as just an idea, and it started at the Cell. I think that was the first place you did it under a different name, right? So, we'll see what becomes the next Broadway show even after Paradise Square, 10 years from now. But anyway, I want to move to the West Coast, to San Francisco, and talk to Catherine a little bit. You are like the maven, I think, of all of the West Coast Bay Area Irish culture organizations. I was amazed at your bio. Yeah, but tell us a little bit about your experience. And it's okay not to be positive if we don't want to be positive about everything, too.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
It's great to be here. Thanks to Martina and his team for doing this again. It's very excited that this is happening, and we're getting together in person as well. And it's great to be in another kind of fire that's not a California blazing fire that I've just left. It's ironic that this is named an Irish campfire, but anyway. So thank you for getting me away from the smoke into the heat.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think pandemic efforts in the arts community, both in the Irish, I have two hats, I have the Irish cultural hat and the mainstream SF arts hat. And my dream is for one to meet the other. And I think Larry's play at Berkeley Rep was a good example of that happening. So I really want to promote getting the Irish arts into the mainstream and not keeping to ourselves. So I think a couple of benefits from this time has been, we've reached wider audiences for sure, like you said. We've reached more national audiences, global audiences, and we've also had access to programming that we wouldn't have seen otherwise. So, for instance, I watched an Epic Museum in Dublin talk about Russian immigrants, Irish immigrants in Russia, and things like that normally you wouldn't. I think there was a lot of learning through Zoom, even though we're sick and tired of it.
Yeah.
I think we learned a bit. And we have Irish arts and writers doing a West Coast salon, and that probably wouldn't have happened without.
Exactly.
So I think we've definitely got more of a global reach. We've come together. There's less competition between groups. People really do want to work together. And I see that every day in the Bay Area. One thing that comes to mind in the mainstream arts, Bay Area arts, is there's a fabulous installation, exhibition, film show coming up in the next couple of weeks that's really on a massive barge that's going to be motoring through the East Bay and San Francisco Bay with a giant 20-foot screen, I think. And it celebrates or looks at immigrant issues. So we've got huge projections of immigrant and asylum seeker faces floating through our bay. So there's more and more outdoor stuff.
Is that a San Francisco generated project, or is that coming from?
It's actually another thing that we're doing well. It's 40 groups have gotten together just in the last few months. We're tired of waiting to have the green light to have things indoors. So I think people are doing more outdoor stuff if they can. And this is a prime example of two things happening. One is it's a huge outdoor thing. It's free. Whoever wants to, stand at the side of the bay can witness this. It's a New York artist, Shimon Ati. His work. And the other thing is to see 40 groups working together so quickly. They just turned this together, and there's cooperation and things that might not have happened so easily a couple of years ago. And I think we've just realized how we take the arts for granted. And now we're all scrambling, even over the last few months, scrambling down the road to see somebody playing mediocre music in a garden or anything, just anything. Yeah. We just need, Zoom is never going to do it for most of the arts. We need to be live in person. And whether it's in looking at someone in the Bay or being indoors, we're with people who are enjoying the same thing. And I think that's huge. And we have to figure out how we can hold on to some of these audiences that we have captured a bit with our virtual programming. We don't want to go back to isolation, especially in California and the West Coast, where we are isolated from the, East Coast and European arts very much. So we need to figure out how to do that, and we need to figure out how to get some money. So, we've taken a hit, we've been walloped, and...
Would you say the hit is coming from private funding or public funding?
Well, it's public, it's city funding, it's grants for the arts, and unfortunately, Larry, we're not in the 70s, and the old idea of being able to create in communities isn't feasible anymore because we can't afford it. Nobody can afford to live in New York or San Francisco and realize their dream as much as was possible before.
Yeah.
So
I think that's, you do bring up a good point in that most artists have a day job. It used to be that you could really kind of put together a living as an actor. I'll speak on that, by doing commercials. If theater was your passion, you had the ability to also earn income other ways. And now people have two jobs. It's just what it is. And a lot of the artists lost that second job, that nanny job, that bartender job. Some office jobs, were lost. So I think the support for the arts is twofold. It's support for those day jobs and support for the actual art itself and the creation of it. But I do stand by my point that I think hard times engender like interesting work.
Absolutely,
Let's
and
say that.
I'd like to lastly say that I think that we've got a treat in store for us with artists who've been locked up for a year, have been, creative juices have been flowing. I think we're going to be pleasantly surprised at what happens over the next. Saw on Twitter yesterday, Martin Hayes has written a book.
Oh, wow.
So people are busy doing different. Maybe Colin Tobin has taken up the fiddle. I don't know.
Right.
People are busy and
Right.
producing, and
I think everybody should realize, though, that it's up to you to really get out there and support the artists, because you can do that, if you have I know the musicians are dying at the moment, and it's going to be very hard to get back in again because a lot of the venues will have closed. I would hate to be with Black 47 and getting it out on the road again, because the avenues we traveled, you can't do that anymore. But you can, when you're having a party, bring in a band. That band will come probably for $100 or something, because it's all about getting the flow started again. And to be political too, it's time everyone got vaccinated.
Agree, completely
Until
agree.
that happens, we can't go back to any kind of normal.
Yeah, because on that note, I gone to half a dozen live shows, but they've been all outside, waiting to get back in with the crowds. I already, because I love live music, but also got my season's tickets for the local theater. And so-
Great, that's
and
great.
stuff.
So I think maybe we have 1 minute. So if we could have one word of what does healing mean, the future of healing in your respective communities, what would the word be? I know that's kind of an unfair question, but let's try. Bob, do you have a word that springs to mind? It's
I'll pass and then come right back.
okay. I'm just trying it.
I'm going to use
Harry?
a few words,
Oh,
because
yeah.
I think we've become more thoughtful in the
Thoughtful.
last year, and
I
I
like
think
that.
the future arts is going to be more socially aware and thoughtful.
Yeah,
Yeah, and also forget about the old normal. That's gone.
right.
It's
Absolutely.
now time to do the arts in the light of what we've come through with the pandemic, and to encourage artists not to just go back to the same old thing, but to reach out and combine with other artists and actually challenge themselves, because that's where the new normal will be.
One theme I think we keep hearing is that these different Irish organizations are coming together and collaborating and getting to know each other for the first time, and I think that's so powerful. And
Oh, and I was going to say Bridge. It's a
Bridge, exactly.
This is, like we've gone from live to virtual, and we're going to move back into live eventually as we slowly transform. But also that we're going to be also stay a foot in that virtual, because it's benefited. I know the Heritage Center so much because so many artists have contributed to us, and we want to give back to them.
Exactly.
And then that's
So
the way.
bridge and connectivity and collaboration seems to be the meaning, the words of the day are the words of the day. So anyway, thank you to everyone for listening, and thank you again to Martine and the Irish Echo. I hope you enjoyed it.